Yeah, because you're down in the south of France, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, it's stifling at the moment, actually. I'm on the top floor of my house, and I have my bedroom. I usually sleep in here, but it's too hot. I'm having to sleep on a lower floor because it's stifling. It's like as you come up the stairs to the top floor, it's like walking into an oven. My poor old dog here, you can probably hear puffing and puffing in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, lockdown situation in France. How's that?
Well, we were in a severe lockdown situation, much more severe than in the UK. For the first time yesterday, I was able to go and get my hair cut.
Yeah.
I thought I should be playing for Iron Maiden a couple of days ago. It was horrible. And I can add, also for the first time this year, I had like a couple of friends come over for dinner. And we sat outside the courtyard, and it was lovely, you know. And
yeah.
It's funny how you take these things for granted, and then when they go, you go, shit, you know.
Being in the Subs, a band that actually is a working band, a proper. And I'm doing inverted commas, but actually you don't need to do inverted commas. You are a proper working band. I mean, you still play a couple of hundred shows a year, literally, don't you?
I think we got it down to about 150 or just over 150.
Yeah, well, there you go. How many bands do that nowadays, to be honest?
Now, since Charlie, you know, got to about 74, we decided it's 76, you know. So, no, I think we are probably the band that does the most shows, punk band that does the most shows in the world.
Regularly and consistently, definitely. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we do 2 big UK tours a year, 5 weeks per tour. We do a big Euro tour every year. That's 5 weeks. And then we do either a USA. I mean, last year we went to Hong Kong and Japan.
Yeah.
Year before we went to the USA. And then we do loads of like mini tours, and we do festivals all through the summer as well, fly in, fly out. So so and then on top of it, I've got my own band, the Disobedient Servants. So the Subs, I've been playing with them. What a mug I am, you know.
I know. I mean, you got them. You got them together. I mean, obviously that was an idea that was been bubbling for how long? To have your own bands, like.
Well, I didn't really think about it for a very long time. And Charlie did a solo album, and he was saying to me, "Oh, you should do a solo album. You should do a solo album." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. You know, I'm not sure about that, Charlie." Yeah. And then when we were in Poland, there's this guy, Krzysztof Lach. He's our Polish promoter, and he's become a mate. I mean, we've worked with him for like 15 years or something. You know, he does all the Polish shows when we do our European tour, and he always says to me, "Oh, come and drive with me. Don't drive with the band." And he tells me all about the difficult people he's had over, like John Lydon came over and. He started a fight with some guy who wanted his autograph, and he tells me about Connor and how bonkers she is and blah. And it's great. You know? And then, anyway, he started going on at me about it, and he says, "You know what? People really like the songs that you write for the Subs. They're sort of more 77 punk kind of songs. You should really do an album that do very well." And I was like, "No, I don't know." I just thought it smacked of kind of indulgence and, you know, a bit egotistic and, you know, and all that. But he kept going, no. And every time I saw him, every year, he got more insistent. And then I suddenly realised I was going to be 60 in 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I thought, well, if I am going to do it, it's going to be now or never, you know. So I thought, oh, why not? But I was still really worried that, you know, would I be able to sell enough records to cover the recording costs and all that? Well, Time and Matter put up the money, but I was worried that, you know, maybe they wouldn't even get their money back on the recording. I didn't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know how many people out there are going to be interested in something like that. But it came out so much better than I thought. And it sold out. The first pressing sold out in 2 weeks. And then we had to do a second pressing. And it got great reviews, and then I started up. Well, I've got to do some shows to promote it, and they all went really well. I mean, we did the Under Club on a Monday night last June when I thought the weather would be great, and it pissed down, absolutely pissed down. There were floods. I thought, oh, we're going to have no one here. But we had 150 in, which for a Monday night during
Yeah.
the monsoon ain't bad.
Yeah.
And all the shows had, decent attendances for a new band, But then I've got like Lee from the Ruts playing with me, and Jamie, and Steve, who used to be in the Godfathers, occasionally plays with us as well. So when you got guys like that with you, you got people watching your back musically, and it's really, really good. It was really good. So.
Yeah, because it's a big difference from playing with the subs and bringing one of your songs into the subset.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, that's a risk as well. You're a bit more, obviously, you're going to have a bit more adrenaline when you're playing that. But actually going out and saying, right, these are all my songs. This is my band. I mean, I'm not in an egotistical way. I'm not saying, but this is my band. This is my songs. There's got to be a little bit of nerves there again. Was it like going backwards? Like, I'm not saying you don't get nerves with the subs now, but you going out with your own band must have been a bit different experience, getting ready for it and stuff.
Oh yeah, very much so. Well, just from the point of view that with the subs, I generally play bass and do backing vocals, right?
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time I did a lead vocal for the UK subs. I think it was when Charlie hurt his throat when Nicky Garrett was still in the band, and I did I sang "Living Dead" and one other song just to help him out.
Was that the time when he jumped off in the audience and didn't come back?
Oh no, that's way before that.
Sorry, yeah, that was Poland, wasn't it?
I'm talking about 2004 or something like
that. We'll leave that. We'll go back to that. Sorry. That's in the book. That story's in the book. Actually, read the book and you'll find all about that story. We'll leave that, all right?
The thing was, suddenly I'm not only playing bass, but I'm having to remember the lyrics, and I'm having to sing. And I haven't got a great voice. It's it just is the case. I haven't got a great voice. I have one that can probably just about, under the right conditions, carry some songs.
Yeah.
But it's not a great voice. So I was worried about that, but I seem to have got away with it. I don't know how, but yeah, it was difficult because I was having to remember the lyrics. I was having to sort of remember the arrangements of the songs because these were still new songs. I wrote these songs for the album, and suddenly I was out playing them, and I had to relearn them before going back out and playing shows. And then I got all the words, and I was like, oh my, it was tough. And also you got to front the band a bit and give a bit of this,
Yeah.
It was very daunting, but it kind of but rewarding. I'm glad I was able to pull it off.
Yeah, you say that about not having a good voice. I mean, that's a personal thing. We all worry about. We all think about ourselves differently than what other people. We all worry about what people think about us more than anyone actually ever thinks about us. But on the album, I like the way you sung on Ghost Train because it's almost like your vocals. You're quite deep, aren't they? And it quite reminded me of quite a sort of gothic, a sort of. I mean, I know the song's called Ghost Train, so obviously, did you do that deliberately on that?
Not really, not because of the subject matter, but I was thinking more sort of Iggy, sort of trying to. How would Iggy sing this one, And
right, yeah.
In the set, I was doing 2 Iggy Pop numbers that I used to do when I played with Iggy Pop when I used to play bass for him.
Yeah.
As a, kind of homage to my time with Iggy, 2 of my bass numbers. So my voice is quite low anyway. I haven't got a high range at all. So I tend to sing,
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, I tend to sing a bit like that anyway.
I just thought it came out on that song really like it was like deliberate, like I mean. I just thought it did. But maybe it just happened naturally. I mean,
happy accident. That's what it is, Johnny.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I mean, if you're on stage as a bass player in a band, if something's going wrong, I mean, what's your get out clause then? Do you just turn around to the amp and look at the amp and sort of pretend like with the back to the audience, or what just on that?
Well, if you have one of those sort of moments where you can't remember what the middle 8 is, or is that what you mean?
Yeah. Something's going. Yeah, I'm losing control here. I've lost it. I can't hear it. There's a crap gig where there's nothing coming out the monitors. Like,
Oh, I'm so used to it now that it doesn't faze me.
Oh, hang
I've
on.
so many gigs, like that, where the monitors have not been working, or the PA shit, or Jamie's so loud, all I can hear is his ride cymbal in my left ear. I'm so used to it now that I can still play sort of okay, even though I can't really hear what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, but that's years and years of just doing it really. But yeah, occasionally, of course, I have those moments where I go, hang on, is this the middle eight that goes, and you kind of feel it out, And I look at Steve's fingers just to see if, just have a quick glance, but I get through it. But I mean, Charlie's the worst one for that.
Well, I was going to say, because I didn't hear you saying. I'll just check where Charlie's coming in singing, like, to see where I was.
No, sometimes Charlie is unbelievable. The amount of times me and Jamie look at each other and start laughing because he comes in at the wrong place. Sometimes you hear him just singing stuff, and it's like, it don't go like that, It's amazing.
Yeah, but
it gets away with it because he's a charming guy. People love Charlie, and you go and see Charlie do his little solo thing,
yeah,
with his acoustic guitar, and he'll come on and everyone clap and everything, and then he'll sort of shuffle his like lyrics around, and then he'll yeah, where's my drink? Yeah, and then he'll go I better tune up. And I mean, everyone will be going, go on with whatever. Everyone's laughing and enjoying it,
Yeah.
And then he'll get halfway through a song and he'll go, I've forgotten it. I've forgotten the rest. And people will just laugh and go, that's just Charlie. It's part of his charm.
Yeah, and all songs evolve over years, don't they? They become different.
Yeah, well, that's true. That actually is true. But in Charlie's case, it's every song.
yeah, it evolves on the evening. But that's what I mean. The book which is coming out, which is Diminished Responsibility.
Yeah.
My stories as UK subs and other strange stories. I mean,
my life is a UK sub.
My life as a UK sub and other strange stories. Yeah. I mean, and it's volume 1, by the way, because I mean there is too much to cram into anything, isn't there? You know what I mean?
I didn't realise. I mean, I was doing these. Sorry, did you have a specific question about that? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's great that you're documenting it because I think you. I mean, you don't state it in the book, but I can see that you obviously kept diaries from an early age, so you've got them things to refer back to, and you're probably the only one out in all the UK subs. People that have been in it. You're the only one who's probably kept a diary, which is great. Yeah.
I think so. Well, I certainly know Charlie hasn't.
No.
It does worry me because he's got a book coming out next year, and I'm sure it's going to be. I mean, already he's like asking a few questions about. We did that tour in like 1999 in the States with Jason Willard on drums, and I was like, Charlie, Jason wasn't playing until 2002, 2003. I was sure he was. Oh, all right, yeah. So
I thought you were going to say. Oh no, Charlie, he played guitar, not drums.
No, it's going to be an editor's nightmare when Charlie hands in what he's written. But I did keep diaries all the way through, and even today. I mean, I don't do the detailed diaries I used to. I just write down gigs and and stuff. But it's good because sometimes your memory does play tricks with you, and you think, oh yeah, that's right, I did this, and then I go, well, I better look in the diary, and I go, oh, no, it wasn't that year. It was the year before, the year after, or
right.
So it's good to have that because then you can be accurate about it,
Yeah, of course, and of course, when you always get together after a night's drinking, you slightly embellish stories to be fun for that time, and then as time goes on, you forget how much you embellished, how much you didn't embellish. You know what I mean? So it's good to have a recorded sort of thing. You know what I mean? Which is good. I found the book really quite honest, and quite revealing. And we're touch on a few subjects. We won't give too much away because I know it's still to come out yet, and it's a great read. I was lucky to get a little draft of the first draft to look through, and I couldn't put it down. I was going to skim through it just to get a few questions. I was like, shit, I should have started this a day earlier. I had to read the whole thing. You know, what I mean, it's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
I think in some ways the second book, volume 2, is going to be more interesting.
Oh yeah. I mean, because we won't touch on it. There was a first book you did in the '90s sort of thing, which you explain in this book why. Not that shouldn't be serious. I mean, are you gonna like totally get rid of that? Don't want anyone to read it, or you just think it's a part of your life that you got out there?
I want it to be pulped. I completely. If I could, I'd build myself a time to go back and just like not do it, you know, and just say, oh. But I suppose the one thing it did is I was going through a bit of a hard time. I was really drinking very heavily, and I was going through a divorce, which was why I was drinking heavily. And that's why the book's so screwed and cynical and crazy and rubbish. But I suppose the one good thing about it at the time was that I would have been drinking even more if I hadn't bought the book. So at least there were certain hours of the day where I wasn't just drinking, you know. But alcohol on very large levels like that can really your thinking and everything, you know. And
it does change you as a person. I mean, it definitely does. You do things that you wouldn't do. I mean, people say, "Oh, yeah, but I wouldn't do that when I'm drunk." But then probably people who don't get drunk, you know what I mean, say that. Only people who.
Yeah, you wouldn't say it. You wouldn't think about, you know, making these kind of observations about people, whatever. You would, you know, you'd be more diplomatic, even if you fooled it. But thing was, I didn't even think those things. I just want some reason I got it in my head that I couldn't just write a book that was going to be like praising punk. I needed to be controversial and you know what I mean. And it was just that's a rubbish way to go. It's a dishonest way of writing a book anyway, because that wasn't how I felt really. I just felt that I should feel like that. I should be cynical because I was cynical about life because my divorce had, you know, and all of that. And so my life was, I was going through this emotional turmoil and all of this, and I was drinking heavily. So I guess I thought, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna, you know, write this stuff, and I don't care. People don't like it, and I don't care. And but then eventually, of course, when you sober up and you look back, having said that, I still drink, but I don't drink. I only drink sort of wine really, and the occasion and beer, a little bit of beer at the time. But I was drinking. We're talking, you know, a bottle of vodka a day, sort of thing. And,
yeah, because I mean, it's interesting because your book. What's great about your book? It's a rock and roll book. It's a rock roll, a punk rock book, but it's not the full of the usual cliches about. There's not stories of just being out of it. Then I mean, that probably the early time when you were in the subs and your early musical career and all that sort of stuff. That probably wasn't when you were drinking like that. Really, you were just drinking for fun, socially. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, so I think there was that one occasion in volume 1, which you've read, which was where someone gave me a bottle of whiskey just before the sound check, and I kept them drinking out of it, and then as we were leaving to go back to the hotel before coming back to the gig, I saw this girl, this really attractive girl, and because I was drunk, I wouldn't normally do this. I just went up to her, went, "Do you want to come with me to the hotel? I think you're really lovely. Come with me to the hotel, and we'll have a drink at the hotel bar." And she was like, "Oh, all right." And then the next thing I remember is waking up next to her in bed the next day. I don't remember anything else, right? And that's really scary because I just assumed that we had gone to the hotel bar, gone up to my room, shagged or whatever, fell asleep, and I'd missed the entire gig. That's what I believed when I woke up. I was like, shit. And then she went, what's wrong? And I said, God, what happened? Did we came back here and did no one knock on the door and try? She goes, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do the gig. She goes, yes, you did the gig. I was going, really? She's going, yeah. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I must have been on autopilot. And then when I went down to breakfast and I saw the rest of the band, I thought, oh, they're all going to go, you were terrible, or what were you doing last night, or, you know, and I'm still new to the band, you know. I thought, oh, God, I'm going to get the sack. I've hardly been in 5 minutes. I'm going to get the sack. And they were all like, yeah, all right, yeah, good, yeah. And I said to Church, the radio, I said, I don't remember doing the gig. I was that drunk. And he said, really? He said, no, you played fine. He said, you were sort of doing crazy stuff like lying on the floor and spinning around a lot and all that, but really good. I must have been on like autopilot or something, really weird.
Yeah, well, you must have heard about that when he eventually got involved with Iggy Pop, about how many gigs he could remember. He must have talked.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, Henry, the road manager, Iggy's road, you know, he's been his road manager since the early days, and he's still his road manager now. I think he actually manages him now as well, not just his road manager, but he actually manages him. He told me some stories, and they were quite, yeah, they were some fright. Well, Iggy told me some stories, you know. He told me some stories about when he used to get out of it. He told me a story about he was so out of it. He went to this party and he was smoking a cigarette, and he came to with the smell of like burning, and he looked down and he had burnt through his jeans into his thigh, and it had like bubbled, and all the skin and flesh had all bubbled up, and it was his flesh he was smelling, burning. That's how out of it he was, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Luckily, I wasn't quite. There was no. There was no big drug use involved. It was just purely hard liquor.
Yeah. No, I get that from what you think, and also the fact I get from just by you talking about that one experience. You're a thinker, aren't you? You're a thinker, and you've got a kind of, even though you're involved in a rock and roll lifestyle, you've got a kind of moral code inside you, aren't you? And you've always had that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that was instilled in me by my parents. You know, but my dad was in the army. He was in the parachute regiment, and there's that story that as I tell it, it's my favourite story from his time as a soldier, which is where he stops the French Foreign Legion guys from setting fire to 2 Arab captives.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And that to me is, you know, that's kind of my moral code. You know, that's what my father didn't instill this nationalism, you know, and all this. He said, look, you know, we're all human beings and we have to treat each other well. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to stop the bad guys from doing what they're, you know, like in the Second World War, you know, and you have to stop fascism from spreading Europe then and blah blah blah. So yeah, I think there is a central moral code that my parents instilled in me, which I'm very glad they did. And that's what's brought me back from the brink, like that time I was telling you during my divorce. You know, it was eventually I realised I was being an arsehole and I had to stop. And I was not only damaging myself, I was hurting other people by behaving like I was behaving as well. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that with your dad. Your dad probably told you that story in an understated way, and that has more impact if he was telling you, like, this is the way you should act. No, he's just telling you in the understated way. And also the way I read about, like, say, go back to it's a rock and roll story. You've got the rock and roll hedonism in there, but it's also the fact that you openly admit that you probably were unfaithful to a few of your girlfriends and stuff, but you were thinking about it. You know, there's a lot of people who, men or women, you know, who don't think about cheating. But I get the impression from the book every time you do it, you woke up, not woke up maybe the next day, but you thought about it. You thought, you know what, is this really what I want to do? Am I sacrificing great things for just easy things? You know what I mean? I got that impression, which is, I think it's quite can't think of the right word, but quite a different thing in a rock and roll sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, I think I was trying to justify it a lot. That was
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh well, I'm thousands of miles away here in the USA, and there's all these like women that are coming up to me and chatting to the band, and some of them are making it known that they like me, physically or whatever. Oh well, what am I going to do? I just kind of tried. Later on, of course, I realised I was being an arsehole, and I was wrong. And now a lot of that it kind of haunts me in a way. There's that line in Ghost Train, and I'm haunted by memories every single day. There are some things where I've hurt people in that way, women I've had relationships with because I've been unfaithful to them, and just been, an arsehole and whatever to people when I was drinking too much, and those are the memories that haunt me. It's funny how that it's karmic, you never escape it, even though I've never done anything terrible to somebody, I've not fucking got in a car drunk and like killed somebody because I'm out my head at the wheel of a car or something like that. God, that really would be terrible. But nevertheless, when you review your life, I'm 62 now, so I tend to review my life a lot more now, especially seeing as I've been writing my memoirs, and I start, why did you behave like that? What was going on in your head? You had a beautiful wife, and what was you doing? You should have been a better man.
Yeah, but it's all part of the process that makes you what you are now. So you have to come to acceptance of it. You know what I mean? You have been very loyal to. I mean, loyalty. You're very loyal to what you believe in, and that's a good thing as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Because your music sort of like education started way before punk, and with T-Rex and stuff like that, the glam rock, and you flirted with the prog rock. You looked into everything. I see that whatever type of music was thrown at you, you wouldn't say, "I don't like that." You just look into it first and see how it goes. Like, you know what I mean? Do you continue to be excited by music, or you just other than your own? You know what I mean?
I do, but but what I find, what excites me now is listening to music that I always used to dismiss.
Yeah.
Jazz, for instance.
Yeah.
And that was a dirty word to me, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But now I really enjoy it, and I'm trying to educate myself a bit on it. And I've been buying like Sonny Rollins records, and I'm just getting into it, and I'm getting and I like the vibe of it. I love the evening vibe of it. It's not music to be played during the day. It has to be dark, and you have to have a glass of wine. And it's got to. I mean, it's like any music. There's good and bad. There's some rubbish jazz, but I mean, if you play a Miles Davis record, you're going to get quality. It's going to be good, and so I've really gone into that classical music as well. That was something I came to sort of later in life, and so and those kind of things excite me. But what I've been doing, maybe it's just a nostalgia thing, but what I've been doing a lot now is going back and playing records from my youth, and some prog stuff. Band called the Groundhogs. There's an album called Hogwash. It's just amazing. I played it recently. I haven't played it for like 40 years or something, or 40 odd years. And I put it on, I went, wow, this is great. and it was like, it was really, it was kind of bluesy bass, but it was also really avant-garde, and there was, and the songs were great, and the vocal, Tony McPhee sounded like Lemmy before Lemmy, you know. It was really good. And so it's interesting. I'm going back and listening to a lot of that kind of music from that period as well, from the 70s, late 60s and 70s, and sort of reacquainting myself with some of that. Hendrix, you know, played Axis Boulder's Love, or, you know, so I saw Black Sabbath in 74, I saw Zeppelin in 75, and I like, you know, I still really like Led Zeppelin. I still think their albums were amazing. And when you listen to their first album, and that came out in '69, and it's so ahead of its time. And also, I mean, Communications Breakdown, that's a punk song. You know?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, that could be The Damned in like 76 or 77, you know.
I mean, I interviewed Rat Scavers, and he told me a story about John Bonham having up against a fucking wall going, I used to be able to drum this fast, you bastard. Like,
Jimmy Page went to see the Damned play when they did the Palladium. You know,
of course he did. Yeah, of course he did. Yeah.
So yeah, in fact, we did the Subs did the Bearded Theory Festival, and Robert Plant was on the bill, and so I got to meet him, and he was brilliant. And of course, Charlie had seen them play in 69 in a pub, you know?
Yeah,
and then I'd seen them at Earls Court in 75. When I told Robert I'd seen them in 75, he said, "Oh, Alvin," he said, "it was all over by then." He said, "It was all just going through the motions there." So he said Jimmy was, you know, he was on the Brown stuff, and it wasn't good. I mean, I like it now that there's no antagonism, and then people get on, and, you know, there's like, you know, we're all like it. We're all like, we're punk rockers, you know, look at these old farts and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Even though I had all the records at the back of the pile of my records, you know. But now, you know, I'm quite happy to see someone like Robert Plant and go, oh my God, it's so good to meet you, you know, it's brilliant.
Well, what would you feel? What would you feel like? I mean, I don't know if it's happened or not, but you see a young punk band coming out, and you go, oh, you got a gig with the uksubs, and they turn around and say, oh, we don't want to play with them old fuckers. We're the new breed. I
mean, it's never happened. I don't think there's any band like that really has ever.
But I mean, going back to the old Croydon connection stuff, one thing I never knew was, and there's no reason for me to know, but how much a big part of your life was football, which is quite interesting. Do you know what I mean? Because you say in the book about, you know, escaping the working class, shackles and all that sort of stuff. You know, there's only a few outlets, especially the era you were brought up in. You know, I mean, sport, music. You know, also, you know, that's really it, really. And you know, what I mean, football was a big thing. I mean, it was probably your first love before music, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, absolutely. And as I say in the book, I mean, I was okay at it. You know, I played for the school team, and I played for the Sunday league team. That was a good Sunday league team, and you know, we used to win championships and things. And I did seriously think about going and doing trials for Crystal Palace, which is my home team, you know, team I've supported since '69. Seriously thought about that, but then of course I happened to see T-Rex on Top of the Pops, and I saw all those all those good-looking young women in hot pants all dancing around Mark and his band, and I just thought, that looks like a really good job, you know. Transferred my allegiance from football to music, even though I'd always really liked music, enjoyed it, and I used to listen to, you know, even as a young boy, I used to watch Ready Steady Go and Top of the Pops, and listen to the radio, and I loved the Stones, and I loved the Kinks and all that sort of stuff, you know, stuff I grew up as a young boy.
I changed hats here to do the direct thing, but you didn't actually see what it was. But you don't realise the team I support, do you?
Oh, Wimbledon! Blinded. play at our?
Sellers Park, boy. We were the squatters. We were the squatters of Sellers Park.
You were actually in the league above us when you were at.
Well, we were Premier League, and you were like, we used to beat you regularly, quite regularly for a while.
Yeah, no, that's cool. 1969, I would have been 11, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a team as such. I liked certain players and I liked certain teams, but I didn't have an allegiance, you know.
Yeah.
But my uncle Les, he was a big Palace supporter, and he said to me, you know, why don't you come to a game? And I was like, yeah, I will. And then when he finally said, look, I've got you a ticket, it was for Manchester United, and I'll be honest, I was more excited about seeing Bobby Charlton and
that's what I'm hearing,
and all those sort of people than I was about Palace. But Palace put on gave such a good go at it.
Yeah.
And they nearly won the game. You know, it was ended up being 2-2. But I just fell in love with the team there and then. That was it. You know, the underdog again. I'm all for the underdog. You know.
Do you ever feel like you had to prove yourself to people? Do you still feel like you have to prove yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's not a bad way to feel, actually. Don't take anything for granted, you know, you have to. And I feel as though I'm still kind of. It's funny. I saw Iggy Pop talking about this. He did that album with the guy from Queens of Stone Age, just on me, and I think it's called Post Pop Depression, and they made a documentary. I've got it on DVD, a documentary about the making of that album and everything. And they're interviewing Iggy, and the interviewer says to him, "Well, you seem to work a lot." He says, "Yeah, He goes, "I never turn down work." And the interviewer said, "But you're quite a wealthy man. You don't really need to work." He says, "Well, I do, because I still don't believe that I've quite made it. I still believe that I need to prove myself, and I still need to demonstrate that I'm worthy of being able to live this kind of life and do stuff." And I feel the same. You know, even though I've done quite a few things over the last 40 years and made a lot of records and whatever. I still feel as though I need to, demonstrate that I'm capable and worthy of playing at Rebellion to a crowd of people, or people coming up and they ask me to sign things. I mean, I go, "What do you want my autograph for?" But it's cool, it's cool, and so I really appreciate all that, and I don't take it for granted at all. Absolutely.
But that can be a positive thing, and that can also turn into a destructive thing, can't it? If you know there's never if you're chasing something forever, like, I mean.
Oh you can't be. I mean, self-doubt can be quite corrosive. It can be quite a bad thing. I'm not so much talking about self-doubt. I guess I've always been a little bit cocky. So I've always, even though I remember, like, when I was playing with the Physicals, we were supporting Thin Lizzy. And these were my first really big shows. Actually, I played with Brian Jones and we supported the Police. You might remember that.
Yeah.
But Thin Lizzy, we're playing to quite a hostile crowd who didn't like punk rockers. And we played to like 7,000 people. And I was just like, well, fuck, I don't care. I'm going to be out there and give them, and if they don't like it, that's their fault. They don't know good music when they hear it and whatever, I was a little bit cocky, even though deep down, I suppose, there was a bit of 7,000 people, and but that's really served me well. But there are people I know that self-doubt has destroyed their careers. Steve Roberts used to play with the Subs. He's one of those guys.
Just one more question. Have you ever watched a Palace game with captain? Have you ever sat and watched it
Uh, that
with a few beers, like on a day off or something?
3 years ago, 4 years ago, w- um, he phoned me up and he said, "Have you got a ticket for the cup final?" Because Palace were playing Manchester United
Yeah,
in the cup final.
yeah, yeah.
I said, "No." He phoned me here, and I said, "No, mate." And he said, "Yeah, it's really hard to get." He goes, "But I've got an in." He said, "So I can get you a ticket. Do you want me to get you a ticket?" I said, "Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
Oh, brilliant.
Do I want you to get me a ticket? Please." So he
Yeah,
got me a ticket, and we met up in a pub beforehand with all the Palace fans, and we were in like the sort of celebrity kind of compound,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing. 2 seats down from me is Eddie Izzard, right?
Yeah.
Get this, Eddie Izzard, right? He's got a Palace shirt on, Palace bobble hat, right?
Yeah.
He's got full makeup on, lipstick, right?
Yeah.
Eyeliner, all the whole rouge. He's got these skin tight, I mean, spray on kind of velvet trousers, and he's got women's high heel shoes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the balls on this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was great. It was great going with captain to that. I mean, I was playing at the 100 Club that night, and it went into extra time. It was 1-1,
Oh
and,
shit.
and I had to leave. I had to leave because
Oh,
the 100
yeah.
Club we were playing. So as I was
Don't tell me. Don't tell me you got the tube. You had a car waiting, yeah.
no, I've got on the bloody train and all. Yeah, out on the train. And that was the other reason for having to leave early before everyone
Yeah.
was out and it all got crazy. But as I was walking away from the ground from Wembley, I heard this big roar go up, and I
Yeah.
thought, "Well, he's gone, he's gone!" And then I looked, there was like a pub, and I could see all these Manchester United fans jumping up and down. I thought, "Oh,
Yeah.
typical." But anyway, got to the 100 Club and played a show. Draped the
Yeah.
up over the amp, and
You should have said to captain, "Look, mate, come here. You should have a car waiting for me outside." That time he could have probably afforded it about then that era.
well, I do. I do hear from him from time to time, and we do stay in touch. And
Yeah.
I, I've asked him to, and he said he will play on my next Disobedient Servants record as well. So
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Yeah.
that'd be really good. But yeah, he's an old mate. I used to know him back in Croydon, back in the
Yeah.
day, and used to go around to his flat. And he used to be into cricket then as well.
Yeah. Yeah. He played. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He was. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good old mate.
I was going to ask you about the early days of punk because you had such a pre-punk musical sort of knowledge. When punk came out, I mean, did you realise instantly it was something happening in a absolute bang way, or did it happen gradually to you? You became aware of it.
Gradually, really. Well, I started to hear about punk. I started to get disillusioned with a lot of the music that was going on at the time. When I first got into sort of glam rock, when I got into glam rock, there was Bowie and T-Rex and Alice Cooper and all these great bands. And then I got through my friend John Easton, who also taught me my first chords and stuff, and got me actually playing music.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, died some years ago. And then I got he was into bands I never heard of, like Hawkwind and the Groundhogs and Led Zeppelin and people like that. So I got into all that. But then suddenly it became really like up its own backside. You had ELP and all the Yes, and I really liked Chris Squires as a bass player, but their music got like really indulgent and their lifestyle seemed to be really indulgent. And then you start to hear about these bands with names like the Sex Pistols and the Buzzcocks or the Damned, and I thought got to check this out. So I went to see the Stranglers actually in '76.
Yeah.
I didn't like them the first time I saw them because I thought they sounded like the Doors, and I wasn't a big fan of the Doors. I don't know why, but that's how they struck me. Maybe because of the keyboard thing. And then my conversion point came when I went to see the Ramones. And I was into the New York Dolls, and I was into Iggy, and I was into that. I was still into some glam rock and stuff. And I went to see them, and I talk about it in the book. We me and my mate opened at the Croydon Greyhound. You used to have to open these heavy glass and wood doors, and it was like walking into an oven, and just that sound just hit you. And just I saw all these like pogoing hordes. All these people suddenly came out of nowhere looking really like so different. We before got to see Thin Lizzy, and it was all denim and long hair, and suddenly there was all these people with like sort of slightly spiky dyed hair and leather jackets with T-shirts with ties and day glow sandals, and I was like, what is and me and my mate just stood there at the back of the hall and just went, this is amazing, and they 1, 2, 3, 4 things, and I just thought this should be done. I've got to do, I've got to get into this, I was young.
Something different.
I was young enough that I thought that way, But maybe been another 4 or 5 years older, I might have dismissed it and gone, young people have gone mad.
Yeah.
But I was still like 18 or
there is a catchment period in it where you're just literally open to everything, and I need direction. You know what I mean?
And that just no, actually I was probably 17 or something when I saw them. So it was. I was young enough where I was still ready to sort of take on board a new sort of type of music and a new look and a new attitude. And then the more I bought the records and the more I got into it, the more I decided that's the music I wanted to be involved in.
Was there any like bands that become legendary you saw really early on in the Roxy days?
No, I only went to 2 shows at the Roxy Club. I went to see Generation X and I went to see The Clash.
Yeah.
I mean, those are 2 pretty good shows to go to, right? But those are the only 2 shows I saw. So in Croydon there was the Croydon Greyhound, and we used to have punk bands playing there all the time. So I didn't really. I saw the Adverts there. I saw Generation X there again. I saw Boomtown Rats. I used to go to all the shows. Ramones, Stranglers. I've forgotten half of the bands that I used to go and see there. They're all in my diaries. Yeah, it's funny, as I've been going through the diaries, I go, did I really go and see them? I didn't realise. Them, So Roxy was just that was just those 2 shows.
Right. Okay.
People sort of glorify the Roxy now, and it's become this sort of, kind of mythical.
Almost like a mecca, like fucking punk rock. Right?
It was a shithole. It really was horrible. But
it had to be, didn't it? Like the CBGBs is a shithole, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I've played CBGBs many times, and it was a shithole, but it's kind of suitable in some ways for the music. It seems to be the kind of ambience for the music or whatever.
You're very aware of history.
Yeah.
And that's probably because your dad and military history. You mentioned Germans and the Nazis, and I do make the distinction between Germans and the Nazis.
Absolutely. My great aunt, Guta, she was a Belsen, right? And my grandfather's brother, my great uncle Les, he was with the British Army that liberated Belsen. That's how he met her, right? And she was the only member of her family to survive. And she was only 16 when he met her, and he fell in love with her, and he took her back to the UK, and then they moved to San Francisco. Well, they moved to New York initially, and then San Francisco. And when I lived in San Francisco for a year before moving to LA, I used to go to their house for dinner, and she would never talk about what had happened. You imagine the trauma of it.
Oh
But
God, yeah, yeah,
she would talk about how she couldn't believe there were still people that were denying that it had happened. And
yeah,
there were apologists for Hitler, and there were apologists for For her, though, even though she was German and she was born in Germany, she hated Germans. She couldn't divorce, Nazism from.
from Germany, yeah, yeah,
So she just Germany. I can, of course, because
yeah,
I didn't suffer the terrible things and see the terrible things that she saw, but that's a direct link between me and Hitler and the Nazis and how they
yeah,
behave. And it worries me sometimes that people will, forget
yeah,
how terrible it was, and also are complacent and cannot see that it could quite easily happen again.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why I mean, the I'll go back briefly to it, and I'll give you my opinion on it, how I saw it, the way that the first punks wore the swastikas,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I thought that was a way of not letting us forget about it. Because I remember when I was a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, I wore the old Destroy T-shirt, the swastika armbands,
Yeah.
because we were saying to our parents, "Stop fucking telling us to not even think about this. We know they were the bastards. We're against you. They're they're the enemy. But yeah, we hate you. But God, no, there was never. I'd never see any in the first wave. There was never any thought of correlation between the right wing racism, whatever it's being now. It was a way of saying, don't forget this because we could be your worst nightmare. Don't let this happen again. That's how I saw it. But
Yeah,
how you saw it at the
uh,
time.
I didn't see it in the same way. I could never bring myself to wear a swastika, even
Yeah.
if,
Even the early days, like even when you wanted a shock. Yeah.
even the
Right.
early
That's
days,
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it because it can be misinterpreted. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
might be wearing it for the reasons you're saying, but it can be misinterpreted. Other people can,
Yeah.
uh, you know, people that are neo-fascists or Nazis could see that and think, oh, okay, he's a you're one of us or whatever, and I wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
So I never quite saw it like that. But
Did you ever go at anyone who was wearing it in them days, or just didn't bother you that much? Or
I was uncomfortable with it.
yeah.
I understood that they were wearing it, not, they weren't aligning
Yeah.
themselves.
And they were kids. You got to remember, we were kids. It was kids doing it. It
Yeah,
wasn't adults doing it. Yeah.
Susie used to wear a swastika armband, and Sid
Yeah.
used to wear a swastika T-shirt, and I knew it was sort of part shock value, part kind of yeah. I think a lot of it was kind of shock value, or kind of saying,
Yeah,
well,
it was. Yeah, it's as simple as that, and make you think. That was all it was. It was
yeah, yeah.
nothing. There was nothing sinister about it. You know what I mean?
No,
I
no,
think.
no.
Yeah.
I do get that, but I could never quite. I couldn't bring myself to do it, and I'm glad in a way I didn't, because it can be misinterpreted, and people can think that you're one of them.
Well, I've got that throughout the book. It's amazing. I've got that strong moral code. What I went in for. There's a strong thinking. There's a deep thinking all the time. Even though in your hedonist periods, which you go into in the book, when you talk, there's always some reflection. There's always some thought. There's into everything. You know, which is I'm sure you had many days where you just went on the piss for 2 or 3 days, but there's always thought in there, and that's why I found really intriguing about the book. Like, it really kept me gripped with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is great.
Just set out to entertain, and
Yeah, it's honestly, this is why it's such a great book. It's a rock and roll book, but it's not a cliche rock and roll book. I was going to ask you about the endangered species album. Did you wrote a few songs on that one? Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote.
Yeah. Divide by 8, multiply by 5. One of my favourite.
I don't think I wrote that one. I
No,
wrote.
but what is it? What does it mean? Is it literally about the kilometres, or is it? Is
Yeah,
it?
that's how you calculate kilometres from miles.
See, I thought it was something else. I thought it was much deeper. And when I interviewed Charlie, I always wanted. I forgot to ask him about that. And I always thought it must be something deeper. And them things you have as a kid. I thought it's got to be something deeper. It's got to be divided by 8. He's fucking. It's about him. I thought it was him getting off with girls, but having a bird back home.
No, it's not. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but it's just how you calculate miles into kilometres.
Right, fair enough. Yeah, right, good. Let's got that one out of the way. That won't be on the interview, don't worry.